Accounting school was a homecoming. From the way I fucked up my first year at MIT, you could be forgiven for thinking that I am a slapdash, chaotic sort of person, but you'd be wrong. I am the most plodding, methodical, careful fellow you could meet. It was just that computers offered me more opportunities to be precise and careful than any mere coursework. There's a reason I was happy to get work debugging other people's code. Accountancy was pure catnip for me. I was born to practice the ancient and noble Venetian technology of double-entry bookkeeping, checking and cross-checking debits and credits, and making all the numbers balance perfectly. Accounting was fascinating enough, but the fact that we were doing it in VisiCalc spreadsheets made it all-consuming. Automating the tabulations made it possible to automate errors, to commit them with a scale and velocity that mere pen and paper accountancy could not have hoped to match. Tiny errors in formulas could cascade through sheets and workbooks, creating subtle compounding errors that were nearly impossible to catch and even harder to root out. I loved it. It was all I wanted to talk about in such loving detail that I even managed to bore Art, one of the human race's most patient and engaged listeners. It got so that I agreed to help Nick Cassidy III with his homework again. It's something I'd halted during the summer of PDPs and Girls and not had any inclination to take up after I started classes again in the fall. Nick Cassidy III was no more interested than Art was, but he'd let me run my mouth while I fixed his buggy code, something I could do easily while telling war stories about subtle calculation errors. It was Nick Cassidy III who suggested that I give a workshop on spreadsheet debugging for the Newbury Street irregulars. In retrospect, I think he was hoping that I'd find a kindred spirit who'd listen to my stories so he wouldn't have to. Whatever the motivation, it was a fantastic idea. By that point, there were half a dozen irregulars who'd bought apples and copies of VisiCalc, and we set up a regular hackers night, styling ourselves SIG SS, the Special Interest Group for Spreadsheets. Thereafter, Wednesdays at the Irregulars Basement Clubhouse were given over to spreadsheets, the core group of 6 expanding to 10 or even 12 on a busy night, working in pairs to figure out ways to wring performance out of them. It was an innocent and wonderful time. One of the most creative and exciting in my life. It was a moment that captured the excitement of my solo hacking in my dorm room during my first semester, but with a side of intense sociability that just fizzed as ideas bounced from person to person, each of us adding something more to the pot until we had a stew of indescribable deliciousness. It wasn't to last, of course. Spreadsheets are a form of science fiction. All those novels we loved in the Irregulars Clubhouse passed hand to hand until their bindings broke and their covers fell off. They all asked some variation on what if, or if this goes on, or if only. And that's exactly what a spreadsheet was for. Spreadsheets could break down a complex system as neatly as any engineering process diagram. But unlike a diagram, a spreadsheet was alive. I could cram a whole chemical factory into a spreadsheet. All its machines and its workers and its raw inputs and its batch times and QA inspections. Then I could change it. What if we find a process improvement that makes this machine 10% faster? What if we schedule a third shift? Will the additional outputs pay for time and a half for the night crew? What if they just do this part of the job, increasing the productivity of the day shift?